Tangled Hearts. Chapter 3. The Ghost of the Past. Lara couldn't sleep that night. Every time she closed her eyes, the memories of David came rushing back. His smile, the way he used to laugh, the tenderness in his touch. All of it felt so vivid, so alive in her mind, as though the years apart had never happened. But they had. And the ache in her chest reminded her of that fact every time she thought about him. She sat up in bed, the moonlight spilling through the curtains, casting a soft glow on her room. Her thoughts were a chaotic whirlpool, a mixture of confusion, anger, and something else, something she couldn't quite name. She hadn't seen him in years, but the instant he walked into that cafe, it felt like nothing had changed. The old wounds were still there, still raw. But what bothered her more than anything was how his presence had unsettled her. How she had stood there, staring at him, unable to speak, as if she had forgotten how to be angry at him, as if a part of her had been waiting for him to come back, even though she swore she would never want him in her life again. Why did he come back? She whispered to herself, sitting on the edge of the bed and running her hands through her hair. She could feel her heart racing again. It wasn't just the fact that he had shown up out of nowhere. It was what it meant. It was the promise of a conversation that would dredge up everything they had left behind, everything they had tried to forget. Her phone buzzed on the nightstand, startling her from her thoughts. She glanced at the screen and saw a message from Jack. Jack, how are you holding up? If you need to talk, I'm here. Lara hesitated for a moment, staring at the message before typing back. Lara, I don't know how I'm feeling, to be honest. It's just, I thought I was over him. She sat there, waiting for Jack's reply. Her phone buzzed again. Jack, I know you are. But sometimes the past has a way of coming back, whether we want it to or not. You don't have to figure everything out right away. Take your time. Lara smiled faintly at his words. Jack had always known exactly what to say. How to make her feel like she wasn't alone. He had a way of calming her that no one else ever could. But even his comforting words couldn't quiet the storm inside her. David's return had shaken her, and no amount of reassurance could change that. The next day, Lara met Jack at their usual spot in the park, a quiet bench under a sprawling oak tree that overlooked the lake. She needed to clear her head, needed to talk to someone who wouldn't judge her for what she was feeling. But even as she sat down beside Jack, she could feel the heaviness in her chest. You look like you didn't sleep, Jack said gently, eyeing her with concern as she settled beside him. Lara gave him a small, tired smile. Yeah, I didn't. I can't stop thinking about everything that happened yesterday. I don't even know what I feel right now. It's all just a mess. Jack nodded, his expression softening. I get it. You don't have to have all the answers right away. But you need to talk about it, Lara. Holding all of this in won't do you any good. Lara sighed deeply, her gaze falling to the ground. I don't know where to start, she admitted. I keep thinking about all the things I should have said to him, all the anger I never got to express. But then I think about how much time has passed, and it feels pointless. It's not pointless, Jack said firmly. You've got every right to feel however you're feeling. He hurt you, Lara, and it's okay to still be angry. You don't have to let it go just because time has passed. Lara nodded, though a part of her couldn't help but feel conflicted. She wasn't sure if she was angry anymore, not in the way she once was. What she felt now was something more complicated, something deeper. It wasn't just betrayal or hurt. It was loss. The loss of something she had thought was forever. The loss of a future she had built in her mind that had crumbled away when David walked out of her life. "I just don't understand why he's back," she said quietly, her voice tinged with frustration. "Why now? After all this time? What does he want from me?" Jack's eyes softened, and he placed a hand on her shoulder. "Maybe he doesn't even know. People make mistakes, Lara, and sometimes they come back because they're looking for closure. Or maybe they're just trying to fix something they broke. But you don't have to let him into your life if you're not ready." Lara leaned back against the bench, staring at the rippling water of the lake. She could feel Jack's words settling in her mind, but they didn't provide her with the answers she was desperately searching for. David's return wasn't just about him. It was about her, too. About what she was willing to confront, what she was willing to forgive, or not forgive. "Do you think I should talk to him?" she asked after a long pause. "I don't even know what I'd say." Jack studied her for a moment before speaking. "I think you should do whatever feels right for you. If you need closure, then maybe talking to him is the only way to get it. But you don't owe him anything. You don't have to let him back into your life if you don't want to. You've built something for yourself, Lara. Don't forget that." Lara smiled faintly, the weight of Jack's words sinking in. He was right. She had built a life for herself, a life that was hers alone. And maybe that was what scared her the most. Maybe she was afraid that letting David back into her life would undo all the progress she had made. As she stood up to leave, Jack gave her a reassuring hug. "Whatever happens, I've got your back. You're not alone in this, Lara." Lara hugged him back tightly, feeling the warmth of his support. She knew that no matter what, Jack would always be there for her. But the truth was, she couldn't escape the pull of the past. Not yet. The days following David's unexpected return were a blur for Lara. She tried to focus on her work, on her routines, on anything that could keep her from overthinking. But it was impossible. Every little thing reminded her of him. The way the barista at the coffee shop played the same song that had been their favorite. Or the way she caught glimpses of men wearing similar leather jackets to the one David used to wear. Lara hated it. She hated how his presence, after all these years, could still consume her so completely. Jack noticed the change in her. He saw the way she seemed more distracted. Her smiles thinner. Her energy drained. They'd had countless conversations about David before, back when the wounds were still fresh, and Lara had been navigating the messy, painful aftermath of their breakup. But this was different. This wasn't just heartbreak lingering in her chest. It was a battle between her past and present. It was during one of these long, restless days that Lara received the text she'd been dreading. "David, can we talk? Just once. I owe you that." Her heart sank as she stared at her phone, the message glowing against the dim light of her bedroom. She wanted to throw the phone across the room, to delete the message, to pretend she hadn't seen it. But she couldn't. Her fingers hovered over the screen, trembling slightly as she debated whether or not to respond. Finally, she typed back, "Why now?" His reply came within seconds. "Because it's never felt right to let things end the way they did. I'm sorry, Lara. I just need a chance to say everything I couldn't before." She wanted to tell him no. to shut him out completely. But a part of her, the part she didn't want to admit, still cared, wanted to hear him out. Against her better judgment, she agreed to meet him. The cafe where they decided to meet was quiet, tucked away in a corner of the city that didn't see much foot traffic. It wasn't the same cafe where they'd first run into each other, but it had a similar cozy warmth to it. Lara arrived early, her nerves on edge as she waited at a small table near the window. When David walked in, her breath hitched. He looked almost the same as he had years ago, though there was something different about him now, something more subdued. His usual confident stride was softer, his expression more hesitant. "Hi," he said, standing awkwardly by the table. "Hi," Lara replied, her voice steadier than she felt. She gestured for him to sit, and he did, though the air between them was thick with tension. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Lara focused on her coffee cup, while David seemed to study her, as if trying to read her thoughts. "I didn't think you'd agree to this," he said finally, breaking the silence. "Neither did I," she admitted. David nodded, running a hand through his hair. "I know I don't deserve this. I know I hurt you, and I'm not here to make excuses. I wanted to apologize. For everything." Lara's jaw tightened. "You think an apology is going to fix what you did?" "No," he said quickly. "I don't think anything can fix it. But you deserve to hear it anyway. I was a coward, Lara. I left because I was scared. Scared of committing. Scared of not being enough for you. And instead of talking to you about it, I ran. I know that was wrong. I've regretted it every day since." Lara stared at him, her emotions swirling. Part of her wanted to believe him, to see the sincerity in his eyes as more than just empty words. But another part of her, the part that had spent years rebuilding herself after his betrayal, refused to let him off the hook so easily. "You say you regret it," she said, her voice firm. "But you didn't reach out. Not once. You disappeared, David. You left me to pick up the pieces on my own." He looked down, guilt etched across his face. "I know. I don't expect you to forgive me. I needed you to know that it wasn't because of anything you did. It was me. I was immature, selfish, and stupid. And I hate that I hurt you." Lara took a deep breath, trying to steady herself. His words stirred something inside her, something she wasn't ready to confront. She wanted to scream at him, to tell him he didn't get to waltz back into her life and pretend everything could be made right. But she also felt the pull of the past, the part of her that had loved him so deeply that it had taken years to heal. "I don't know what you expect from me," she said finally. "Do you think we can just go back to the way things were? Because we can't." David shook his head. "I don't expect that. I don't even know what I'm expecting. I miss you, Lara. And I know I have no right to say that, but it's the truth." His words hung in the air, heavy and loaded with meaning. Lara felt her heart clench, but she forced herself to stay composed. "You don't get to miss me," she said softly but firmly. "You don't get to walk away and then come back when it's convenient for you. I've moved on, David. I've built a life without you." David nodded, his expression pained. "I understand. And I'm glad you found happiness. I needed to say all of this, even if it doesn't change anything." Lara didn't respond. She didn't know what to say. She could see the regret in his eyes, hear the sincerity in his voice, but it didn't erase the years of pain he had caused her. As they sat there, the silence stretching between them, Lara couldn't help but wonder what this meeting had really accomplished. She didn't feel closure. If anything, she felt more confused than ever. And then, as if the universe wanted to complicate things even further, Jack walked into the cafe.